Hey guys, welcome to Imminent Threat Solutions. Today we're going to be talking about the one-handed bowline. So the one-handed bowline is something obviously you tie with one hand, but if you're working around an object, you're floating down a stream, you happen to grab on to a spare tree limb that was on your way downriver, and your buddy throws your rope, you can now put this around yourself and tie a loop around your body to potentially save your life. So that's what we're going to be going through today. A couple of caveats to that is that if you are lowered a line, if you're stranded down the side of a mountain, you're lowered a line, this is not the knot to tie in that to put around yourself and get hauled up the side of a mountain. You can wind up asphyxiating on the way up before you'd actually reach the top, potentially. So there's life-saving applications for this line, but you also really need to be aware of where it shouldn't be used too. In that kind of situation, I would tie something completely different if a line was lowered to me for rescue. So we're not going to get into that in the scope of this knot of the week, but again, for the one-handed bowline, just know its limitations. So let's get into how to tie it. Okay, again, in the scenario where you're tying a one-handed bowline, you could be potentially holding on to a tree limb for dear life and somebody throws you a line. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually step over the line to wrap it around my body. So as I do that, just note that you're going to have some slack in the line, so whoever is, controlling the line is going to have to provide you slack, which is important. If you're not provided slack, what can happen as you go to tie this is that you can actually get bound up and not be able to pull the knot through your wrist or the loop that's created by your wrist. So I'm going to show you that real quick. Go ahead and take up a little slack here. So what could potentially happen is if this is taut and you're not able to get the slack you need, because the first motion is actually crossing over the standing part of the line, and by doing this motion you're twisting a loop in the line, and you can't do that if the line's taut. I mean, if Rob really yanks on this and there's no way I can physically get that through there to create the loop I need for a one-handed bowline. So I'll have to have some slack there, and you can control that slack if you move from potentially grasping that tree limb to the rope. Just know that you really shouldn't ever wrap that line around your hand or potentially create a situation where that line could get yanked, or now you're floating downriver and that's all that you're hanging on to because the current's so strong. It's not a good situation to be in. You could potentially break your wrist, your hand could come off, you could get degloved like Jimmy Fallon. There's a lot of things that could happen, so don't even go there. Again, you might have to control the slack with your arm. So again, I'm going to control the slack. So you can see I pulled that into myself here. I'm grabbing that line. I'm going to go cross over the top. So I throw that entire line over the top, come in, create that loop. Now with this, I'm going to pass around the back side of that standing part with the working end and pass that off to myself and then back through. And then as the slack gets tightened, creates the bowline, just like that. So one more time, I'm going to move a little faster this time so you can kind of see what that looks like. Again, pulling plenty of slack into me. And back through. So even as I was rushing, you could see that I didn't have enough slack in my hand to do that properly. I still got hung up with my wrist. So the way you can fix that is to make sure that you're controlling that slack all the way through. So you can see that wrist loop is pretty big now because I'm controlling that, and then it gets locked in. So if you're rushing to tie this, you might run into that situation. So, patience is key. Take your time. Make sure you tie this correctly. There's nothing wrong with trying to tie it fast. This is a great knot to race buddies with. You get one line and two of you guys stand on opposite sides and race to tie one-handed bowline. Cool little thing to do when you're bored in nature. So one more thing I'm going to show is a top-down view so you can actually see this from my perspective. All right, so you can see the line is wrapped around my body. The working end is in my right hand here. So we'll start again by pulling in the slack. You're going to come with the working end across the standing part. So again, over the top and then through, creating that loop. So now this is the point where you can control the slack. You can bring it into yourself. Again, now you're going to cross behind and pass this off to yourself and back through that loop, creating the one-handed bowline. Try that one more time. Again, pull it into yourself, cross over, create the loop, pull the slack to free your wrist, around the backside, back through the loop, one-handed bowline. Thanks for watching the ITS Knot of the Week. Be sure to check out itstactical.com to learn more, or click the description below to get a direct link to the site.